I'm going to introduce the Mr. Jim Boykin. He's out of upstate New York, internet marketing ninjas since 1999 with 40-something employees. It's a lot of people. I've managed that many. It's hard. So from 2012 to 2017, he was also the owner and CEO of Webmaster World, SEO Chat, ThreadWatch, Create a Site Forums, and probably everything else where I have a public profile on. And he sold those all to Brett Tapke. He's known primarily for link building and tools, but having some of the biggest industry stars in the world work for ninjas like Ian Smarty and former stars like Chris Boggs, Ray Drysdale, Lisa Barone, Kim Crossberg, Chris Jones, Neil Marshall, Ted Ule. He's had a lot of talent come through over the times. Who else was in there? Like, didn't Todd Mallicoat work for you at some point too?
He did. I love Todd.
Like so many people. So he's trained up a lot of current veterans. He's a former blogger. He's a former SEO video star as Jim and Ann Smarty show. But really, he's been leading Internet Marketing Ninjas now.
Oh yeah.
And so I do think he is a good guy in the industry, all around good guy. So without further ado, Jim, if you would like me, let's just dive into some questions.
Thank you for that introduction, Joe. I filled up my glass of wine just a few minutes ago. I fear the more I drink, the more honest I might be with the answers as well, and the more I can let loose. But
the answers will come more freely. Ooh, there we go.
This is good wine,
baby.
This is perfect.
I love it.
Fan of that one.
All right, so I'll have a sip, and you can start out the questions. So bring them on.
Good drinking game to me. So question number one: what are your thoughts on guest blogging? Given Google's recent comments about the tactic. And this question comes from Christy.
Guest blogging. Well, yeah, I believe it was John Mueller a few days ago just said, guest blog posts have zero value. And, I guess I have assumed that for years. I figured that for years. Like, Google is usually not a fan of most guest blog posts. The reason being is most sites that have those, not all, there are exceptions, but a lot of sites, they're just guest blog post sites. And that's where a lot of people are getting their links from. You can certainly get a real link from a real site and have it be a guest blog post. But I guess my thought, and I don't know, but I would believe that if I was Google, there are certain words that if they appeared on a page that I didn't count. Words like sponsor, sponsored, guest, guest post. Like, yeah, you might throw out a couple of good ones, but 98% of that, you're going to throw out the non-real stuff. So, I mean, with some of our internal tools that I use to analyze backlinks, one of our filters looks for words. So we look at people's backlinks and we look at how many of those pages have the word guest on them or sponsored on them. And I figure that, I just kind of figure that a lot of those just aren't going to count. And I don't know, but I figure that, Google is going to look for any page with the word guest on it or sponsor on it or certain other flagged words and just not count the external links on those pages. So John kind of said, yeah, they're guest blog posts are worthless, and you got to ask, well, how do they know? Well, if it says guest post by, that's a good flag. So, nothing's changed on my view. We don't try and get blog links in general. I honestly don't trust blogs. I don't trust bloggers. I think people that are trying to get links, we're talking about building backlinks. A lot of people, the only links that they get are blog links, and often those blogs are in networks that are artificial. How do I say that? There can be some real guest blog posts on real sites that may count, but I believe the majority of them don't count and have been filtered for years. So nothing changes in my eyes.
Fair enough. That's good. Good answer. The next question is coming from Julie. And Julie asks, We have a site in the appliance parts vertical and have been working on getting relevant links from guest posting on home improvement blogs over the last 6 months. We've seen really very little movement that we can contribute to the efforts. Are links still as strong a factor as they once were? Should we reconsider our approach?
Good question. And she mentioned the guest blog post,
Yeah.
which I've already get on that. I'm not going to be able to read the comments on the side here probably till after. I've seen all these comments come in.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Can't get too distracted. But let's see, an appliance site. So I think that part of the problem is trying to get the guest blog post. Those links may not have the effect that she's trying to get. So there leads into, all right, what is the type of content that you might want to write? You said it was an appliance site?
Yeah, it looks like appliance parts. And the way that they were trying to get links was mostly through guest posts in the home improvement blogs.
All right, so let's look at some other ways. There are an appliance parts, definitely some how-tos would be great. Things like product reviews would be original product reviews, original videos, unboxing. Like there's certainly things that you can do. How-tos, reviews, and videos would be good on the site. If you're looking for other additional content, so she's looking at link building. And it's like, all right, why would someone naturally link to their, you said an appliance part, I don't know, their washing machine page, well, ideally you have the best washing machine page in the world. You have all sorts of information about that washing machine. You got an FAQ about the washing machine. You got reviews on it. You got videos. You got like the ultimate washing machine page. But then you got to ask, well, who's really going to link to that washing machine page? Who cares? The only one that cares is some blogger that's, maybe there's a home improvement blogger, and they're just giving blog posts to people, like they're taking money or doing something that's artificial to give these links. Like, why would someone link to their washing machine page, even if it's the best page? So, that links is the biggest part of Google's equation. And how do you get more natural links? How do you avoid the blog made for blog review blog sites, whatever, the artificial stuff? You can write other kind of content to get links. Other type of content, an appliance site. I think of appliances, I think of GE. Can you write about the history of GE? Jack Welch was a CEO of GE. I've read one of his books before. He had an interesting management style, Neuron Jack's. Like, can you write stuff about some educational stuff about Jack Welch or his management style?
From the gut.
Appliances. I don't know, the history of the washing machine. Like, there used to be washboards and stuff, or the history of refrigerators. It used to be ice boxes. Can you do an appliance museum on your website? All different types of histories of different things. Can you have, if you're going to be an appliance site, create the best appliance site with the best resources that could gain links from real sites. I don't want to sound, write great content. I don't want to say that, but write content that can earn backlinks from non-blogs, from trusted sites. There's just some examples. Maybe it's the museum thing as well, and writing the ultimate page about how to wash with a washboard. And then once you have that content, that's part of it. The next part is, how do you get people to link to it? You can just publish it and hopefully people will link to it. Or I don't know, if you write something about the management style of Jack Welch, who was the CEO of GE for years, and you write some really great article about that, then maybe you start looking for orgs and edus and govs, or old trusted websites, or college course stuff, or even K-12s, and look for pages where they link out to that type of material and be like, hey, here's another really great page to link out about that material. But I forget the original question was, but an appliance site, is links still valuable? Yeah. And often links to your money pages, often when I look at people's backlinks analysis, the link to their money pages are this artificial blog stuff. And so, you do have to, ideally you do have the perfect washing machine page, and you have a page that's so incredible that people are linking to it. Great. But you may want to also do, the history of how to wash stuff with a washboard, and then write to other sites that link out to that stuff and try and get them to link to it. So and then use that washboard page to link to your new washers or whatever that you're trying to promote to kind of send that power from that page to the other pages. But kind of think of, what are the things that you can do that have to do with appliance? How do you make yourself the best site? How do you go above and beyond? How can you write stuff that's educational outside of the box? I probably spent enough time on that one.
And then we get a lot of them too. So I mean, still staying on the theme of links here, Chris asks, we're going through an internal link audit, and there's been disagreement from some of the team members on which source we should use for our link analysis. Which tools do you use to analyze backlinks?
Good question. So, the major places out there to look at backlinks are Moz, Majestic, Ahrefs. We use all three of those. We also use another one called SEO Kicks. I know that SEMrush has backlink data as well. I know that tools like link research tools pull from a lot of places. Alexa has link data. There's other places with link data. Google Search Console has link data as well. So let's start with all of those indexes are very different. And no one, I'm not going to say that any one of them is better than the other. You take any website and you throw it through Moz, Majestic, or Ahrefs to look at the backlinks. They'll show some that they all know about and some that only two of them know about, and a whole bunch that only one of those sources know about. So kind of the way that our tool works is we grab from all three of them, and we kind of have a little chart that shows which place found that one. And they all have a small slice of the internet. I think a lot of people think that they know it all, but especially when you hit a big site, you hit a edu or a gov or something, and you're a crawler. How deep and how wide do you go into that? And they're all very different. Which one do I use? I don't use any one. I use Moz, Majestic, Ahrefs, and SEO Kicks. Plus, when we're analyzing backlinks, we also look at Google referrer data. So we look at all the referral links throughout time. So we do lots of different time calls in Google to look at all the referral clicks and add that to the link data as well. So we look at all your referral clicks and what sites and pages they came from, as well as we look at the Google Search Console. Now this brings up an interesting point. So if you were at PubCon a couple of years ago, Gary Ilias was on stage doing a keynote, and me and him ended up getting into a little bit of a discussion because I asked the question, hey, why doesn't Google Search Console show accurate backlinks? Like, are we supposed to use Moz, Majestic, or Ahrefs, or, are you going to tell us that Google Search Console is the only thing that you should use? And he said, all that you need is Google Search Console. And I kind of said, that's BS. And, we went back and forth for a little bit. And suddenly I'm like, oh my God, I'm in Gary's keynote and I'm arguing with him. Like, I need to crawl away. Like, I don't want to be that guy. I ended up apologizing later. But we went back and forth, and I'm calling, no. Like, there's some times where someone would get a manual penalty, would submit, they'd say no, they'd throw in 3 links. And it's like, these weren't in the Google links that you showed before. Like, where did these suddenly pop? So that being said, things have changed a little bit for me. So when I had an interesting thing happen about a year ago. Actually, it was just about a year ago. A huge billion-dollar company came to us, and they said, we've had a manual penalty. We did a disavow, got a no back, got 3 example links. Can you do our link analysis? So I said, sure. And I went in and I looked at their backlinks. And honest to God, my first thought was, oh, you are effed. Like, all of these links, none of these are natural. You're a billion-dollar company, publicly traded, but all of your backlinks are not natural. And so I was talking with a guy, and the main guy there is like, hey, we want to have a disavow as small as possible. So, all right. So I analyzed all their main folders. There was like 13 main folders. And I looked at traffic, and I found that one folder fell more than the others. They had a manual penalty, and their overall traffic didn't fall a whole lot. Really, they weren't affected too much, even with a manual penalty. So I analyzed all the folders. One folder fell more than the other. So I said, all right, I'm just going to concentrate on the links to this folder. And I went into that folder, and I mean, this is a huge, huge company. And I disavowed, it was something like 2,000 some odd sites. And I sent it to the guy and I said, all right, this is a pretty small disavow. It's only 2,000. I just did it in that folder. I don't know if this is going to work. It's probably not. And he wrote back and said, hey, that's too many sites. I want a smaller disavow. So like, I don't know, like, the whole, in any case, so I went back, I was like, all right, and so I went to my tool and I said, just show me from all the bad backlinks that I had marked, just show me ones that Google shows in Google Search Console. There was 209 of them. So I said, all right, we're going to disavow those 209 that I feel are bad, that are only shown in Google Search Console. We gave them the disavow, and I wrote an interesting reconsideration request that kind of said, we hired some other company, the same, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But they got out. 209 domains disavowed out of what at first would have been like 40,000 spam links. Like nothing was natural going in at all. It was like, oh my God, and then narrowing it down to a folder, and then only 2,000, to then drop it down to 209 sites in the disavow. They got forgiven. And all those were just Google. So that was kind of a turning point to me where I'm like, because at the end of last year, Gary actually said at 3 different conferences that I was at the end of last year, people asked about what backlink source. And Gary said, Google Search Console is the only backlinks you need. And as much as I called BS on that for years, when I do a disavow now, what I basically do is I look at everything from all the sources. But then at one point, I narrow it down to just what Google Search Console shows for backlinks. And I'm a bit more fussy on that and a bit more lenient on the other stuff. So that's, I forget the original, what tool do I use? I think I answered that question.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And actually, the next several sort of interweave with this a little bit. So Carl ends up asking, he asked about link analysis and how you go about it, but he asks, what metrics are you actually looking about when you're disavowing? And so you're sort of going into that discussion now because you look way more heavily on WMT data now.
How we do the analysis has changed a lot fairly recently. So yeah, we got the data from Moz, Majestic, Ahrefs, the analytics, Google Search Console, and we create we have our own private tool. Mm-hmm. And we create all sorts of patterns to look at. 5 words before the anchor text, 5 words after, same IP, same registration date, common titles, all sorts of tons of patterns. And we look through those and kind of decide, is this real? Is this natural? Is this okay? Just because something fits a pattern doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. I don't look at, in my analysis, I don't look at Moz, Majestic, or Ahrefs, or SEMrush, or link research tools, or Kemper stuff, or anything. I don't look at any toxic scores, Moz scores, Majestic scores, domain authority, page authority. I don't look at any of that. None. I might look at a couple things. What are some of the things I look at? Has that backlink ever brought in traffic to your site?
Yeah, it's a huge one.
Is a backlink really a backlink if no one's ever clicked on it? Is something spam if it's brought in a whole bunch of clicks? So I look at traffic. I look at what is the SEMrush value of the site, the organic value. And I'll look at how many backlinks are going to each site. So kind of when I'm looking at a site, it's going to show me a couple of things. This site links to you. Here's one of the example URLs. Here's how much traffic it's brought in. And a lot of times it might be 0. And here's the SEMrush organic value. Maybe it's 40,000. That's good. The site's doing great. And then I look at the number of backlinks. So how many other sites link to that site? Now, what I'll find often is, here's a whole bunch of sites that have hundreds or thousands of backlinks going to them, but their organic value in SEMrush is 0.
Hmm.
And you go back and you look at their history in SEMrush, and they're do-do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do. And it's like, all right, these are all sites that have been penalized. I used to quote a lot Marcus Tober, did a blog post once about how 89% of sites that existed 7 years ago no longer rank today. And that's part of the problem with Moz, Majestic, and Ahrefs scores is, if a site has thousands of backlinks, it's got a high score, whether or not it's penalized in Google, and has been for years. But where was I going? Things that we look at. So those are some of the things that we look at, but recently we've taken it to a whole other level. And I hope I don't upset any other link builder companies that might be on this. Maybe I should have a sip. All right, so this is our own private tool. It's not for sale. But what we've also done is about a year ago, we started to feed in databases and spreadsheets of sites that sell links into our tool. So every major company and any client that's ever worked with any of the companies, we've grabbed their spreadsheets. Anyone that's come to us for a disavow, who have you worked with, grab their spreadsheets. Anyone that's publicly says, here's a whole bunch of sites, throw them in. We get emails almost every day, probably a couple a day. Hey, here's my sites. I said, great, can you send me a spreadsheet? Yep, here. And I feed them all into our link analysis tool. Each one of those spreadsheets get named. Here's the company, or here's the date of the email. And so for a year, we've had it in our tool where anytime that I'm looking at someone's backlinks, I can choose a drop down, which is link sellers. And I can see all the links that are in known databases. About a month ago, our programmer took the link seller databases of each seller and mapped out what he believes to be the network. So he kind of mapped out everyone that links to those, everyone that those link out to, and kind of said, here's 100 sites that are in this link sellers network that we know of, but here's 10,000 suspected sites that we think are in their network, or however big the number is. It's a very big number of suspected. So the past month when I've been doing my analyses, before I was looking at all the patterns, looking for sites that have been penalized, what I'm looking at now is, I'm show the known link sellers. Boom. All right, here's all sites that I know sell links. I know these sites are in databases of spreadsheets. And then show me the suspected link sellers. Boom. Here's all the suspected link sellers. We've added in a couple of filters into those to try and make it a bit more accurate. But now that's really the biggest part of the analysis. I had a client earlier this week that came to me and said, hey, there's this competitor that has come out of nowhere. How are they having these rankings? And so I went into our tool and ran it, and I can see all the known link sellers and suspected link sellers. And I said, they're buying from here and here, and they're doing all this other stuff as well. But like all these are all the paid links from these two places. And it's good. The site came out of nowhere. The site started less than 3 months ago, and it is making bank on money phrases like, bless their soul. They really know what they're doing.
Now,
to mention the hacking of other websites, but I won't even get into that. But they're buying this other stuff. But the question is how long will that site be there? Now it's an affiliate site, and they totally know that they're throwing everything at it, and about as black as you can get. And a year from now, they're not going to exist. And why will they get penalized? Is it for the hacking? Is it for the network? It's probably from the network. Like, it's pretty scary. Like, now that we've mapped out the potential sellers within the network, we actually have a thing in there where I can click on like a little dollar sign that's next to the site, and it shows the whole map out of who links to what and how that. It's really sick. And I think that's what Google's looking at. Google is not looking at Moz score or Ahrefs score or any of that bull crap. What they're looking at is, are you getting artificial links? Are you in any of the networks? And it's like, so many people, I don't want to put down any place or whatever, you say, I've got an appliance site, and you go to some place and they're like, yeah, we've got thousands of bloggers in our network, and a bunch of them are, write about, home stuff or appliances, and we're going to write these relevant blog posts and give you links to your money pages. And they get them and they show them to their boss. And they're like, look, it's a home site, and it's right on target. And look at the article, isn't it nice? And it links to our money page. And and then you have that person saying, why isn't it working? It's like, well, yeah, Google's already filtered that out. Like, they've already filtered so much of that out. And if I can filter, if I can find the patterns, like,
Then they can.
3 programmers, I got 3, and it's like, that's mostly built by one guy. Google's got a whole lot more. Like, if I can map it out, so can Google. If you don't think Google's like collecting that stuff or looking at, here's the sites we work with, and it's like, all right, let's grab their backlink. I don't know. I think I answered the question.
Oh, no, that was really good, because you went in all these directions. Like, you could just think of it in terms of like probabilistic. Are you a probabilistic link seller or buyer? And just from that, they can just to come up with a heuristic score.
Well, what I have is I have also a list of the 10,000 most suspected link buyers or by SEMrush of how values the site, and we're trying to post each month. So each month, what I'm doing is looking for who took the huge drop. If I want to, I can write to them and be like, I know why you fell. You're one of the biggest buyers. So I have a list on, I have a window, like a little screen that shows the top 10,000 suspected link buyers.
Actually, that segues into a different question. I'm going to go a little out of order, but that segues really nice into something. So you have this list of all these link buyers. So Thomas wants to know, what's the best outreach tool that you can recommend and why?
The best outreach tool.
If you were to reach out to all these, link buyers.
I don't know, the best, email, but I guess, all right, we have our own custom email programs, but you really don't need that. What is it? It's an email. And I guess there's, you got a couple things, depending on who you're writing to, it's got to be a good story. If you sound like an SEO trying to get a link, they're not going to give it. Anyone you're writing to, they get 1 million emails a day from SEOs, 1 million BS that they just consider as spam. And it's probably getting really annoying to a lot of the real people. When they read it, they're like, this is an obvious SEO trying to get a link, F you, delete, mark as spam. So it's really not the tool that you use, it's how you use it. So, it could be all different stories, but it has to be something that has to tug at their heartstring and prove that you're real, and prove that you've actually been to their site and prove that what you're writing to them makes sense for them to do. Are you writing from, hey, I'm the author of this content, and hey, your page was a really good resource in my research, and man, if you can put this link on here, my boss is going to give me a raise, or otherwise he's going to fire me, or I don't know, but hey, I loved your article about this. I love the picture of the dog. I got a dog named Skippy Tour. There's the prove you're human. It has to make sense. It can't sound like an SEO trying to get a link. Personalized emails. Happy Friday. I hope you're staying free from coronavirus. Just something that sounds personal, sounds real, because they're going to assume that you're spam, and to get someone to actually put a link up it's not an easy ask. Like, you can't just be like, here's a great link and see you later. And it's not follow up either. I've never sent an email twice. No one has ever had me, you just see our email? Like, of course, you have follow up emails to me are like, oh, you're totally an SEO. But, it's something that would make real and make sense. So it doesn't matter what email program you use, because you're not going to be sending stuff out in mass. You got to personalize every email. You got to prove you've been to the site. You got to prove that it makes sense. And someone writing to like some blogger being like, hey, you wrote this blog post 4 years ago, can you add this link to it or whatever? It's like, I guess you got to write something really good. You have to have a really good resource that would make sense for people to write to. You got to find pages on the web that it would make sense for them to add that resource. And, you know, I hate to say it, but you don't want to sound like an SEO trying to get a link. You got to come up with a better story.
Absolutely. So like next, maybe you already kind of covered tips a little bit. So next actually comes from Frank, who was just asking in the comments, where am I on this list? He asked, you know, hey, I have some budget for link building, like 10,000 a month. What would you recommend as an electronic components that's not a huge audience? How should he go about getting links?
Electronics. Well, electronics sounds like a fun topic. You got to make it a fun topic. So, you know, it's similar to the appliance question. You know, can you do an electronics museum? Can you do how-tos? You know, electronics is great. Can you do school stuff? You know, wow, electronics is great. You know, how do you make a light bulb turn on with a battery? Like all sorts of electrical cool experiments that you could do and videos on it, and, you know, and get links from schools and teachers. You know, I think a lot of people are thinking, how do I get links to my money pages? How do I find blogs that are going to link to my money pages that are good? And it's like, you're not, you know, stop. You know, any blogger linking to your money page is artificial. I swear to you, 99.99% of any blog post linking to your money page, in my book, it's BS that it got there. Something happened. And probably that site is in some network. And so let's think outside of the box and stop trying to think about getting links to your money page. I mean, your money page should be so great that people will link to it. Okay? That being said, electronics, you got to write other stuff. Electronics, what's great? Like Tesla. You know, you're going to write about Tesla. You know, wait a minute. Wait. In my bookcase here, some books.
And here goes Jim Boykin.
Here I am. Look, I wasn't gone long. Yes. Hey, can you see these books?
Yeah, electrical experiments from Nicholas Tesla.
Yeah. Now the interesting thing is, what is the year of these?
I can't make out the year.
1916. 1916. This is 1919.
Are those out of the copyright? Are you able to republish?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you could take these whole magazines and publish them. Like, what does that one say even?
The anti-gravitational ray.
Yeah. You know, take this magazine, take all these articles. It's free of copyright. Put it on your site. Do a bunch of how-tos on how to do electrical stuff. Somewhere in those how-tos, put links to your stuff that you do sell. You know, somehow as you're talking about, what is this anti-gravitation ray? Somewhere in that article, find an excuse to link out to a couple of the stuff that you do sell. You know, did they say, was the words in there boring topic? Did they say electronics boring? Are you kidding? That's fun. Like, if you're going to be an electronic site, be the best. Like, put all sorts of how-to electronic stuff for kids. Like, look at all the K-12 links you can get. Look at all the science experiment stuff you can do. The electronics experiments. You know, grab all this old stuff, like just taking this whole magazine or all of them and publishing them online on your own site is legal, and you're going to get all the links naturally. In fact, when I publish them all online and then write to a whole bunch of other sites that might benefit from linking to it.
Mm-hmm. You could even reach out to like all the families of the authors of that stuff. We preserved it.
Yeah. You know, there's electronics to me, like we have sites that we call fuzzy bunnies and at Ninjas, and fuzzy bunnies are like the fun sites. You know, someone has something to do with animals, or someone has something to do with like music or something. It's like, oh, these are fun. You know, they're the fuzzy bunnies. Like electronics, he says it's boring. To me, it's a fuzzy bunny. Like, oh, look at all the educational stuff that can be written and the how-tos to get links. You know, something like, I don't know, finance or something, or payday loans or something like that's not fuzzy bunny. Those are the non-fun stuff. But electronics is fun, but you might be just thinking like, all that I sell is electronic parts and how exciting is it? It's not. And so why would anyone link to it? So make it exciting, make it sexy, add all sorts of sexy, cool stuff. We call them brand assets. Do a whole thing about Tesla versus
Edison.
the guy who was wrong, Edison. So, yeah, I'm sure there's infographics and stuff that could go viral about that stuff. So yeah, to me, electronics is sexy. You just got to stop thinking of getting blog links to your money pages.
Doc had a follow-up question to that regarding the republishing stuff that's out of copyright. If you do that, do you then hold the copyright, or is it just kind of a common commons or whatever?
I think it's common. I'm not an expert on it, but I think it's like there's certain stuff like anything since
It's like 100 years past.
Don't take this advice, but something like anything that's over 100 years old is like
Yeah.
free grab, and then like the rules changed a couple times. So like some stuff is 75 years or something, but I'm pretty sure like anything over 100 years old is free of copyright. But double check because I'm not a lawyer.
No, that's really good. I like that concept. Let's see. I think we have time for one more question here. Claire had asked, what's your number one link building tip? Now, obviously, you're throwing out, it's like the creativity. You keep coming with different angles. But is there a number one tip in your mind?
Well, it's hard. It's all different pieces of the puzzle. You got to have the right content that's linkable. So I guess if you're get off of the, to me, I'm not a blog believer. In case anyone hasn't caught it yet, I'm not a blog believer. So get off the blog thought. So if you think of non-blogs, orgs and K-12s or EDUs or schools or govs or whatever, you got to kind of think, what is the type of stuff that they might link up to? And I think that's a lot of the stuff that, we talked about with appliances and the electricity. It's kind of like, what is the stuff that's a bit of outside of the box, but stuff that people link to that's somehow related? So you can write that content and build it. So part of it is you got to have the right content that is linkable, meaning other sites on the web must link out to that topic already. Whenever we're looking for sites of who to write to, we're looking for pages. We have kind of these little filters in our tools that search Google. So like our guys will run a search, the history of Tesla, and it grabs the top 1,000 results from Google, and it removes blogs and forums. And it one of the things that it looks for is how many external links are on those pages. And the number that kind of turns things green is more than 7. A lot of sites will have a couple links like their Facebook, Twitter, social, 3 or 4 on there. But what we're looking for when you go through the results is, here's a page with, 25 other links on it that are external. Oh, good. Let's look at the page. Oh, yeah, they got a whole bunch of links to Tesla stuff. Oh, yeah, this is great. I'm going to write to that person and say, hey, researching Tesla, you got a really lot of great resources on there that helped out in my research. I found this other really cool page about Tesla. I think you should add it. Have a great day. Peace, love, whatever. And send those. So what's the number one tip? It's hard to give a number one. Like real link building can't be scaled.
Mm-hmm.
Real link building is not going somewhere and saying, hey, I've got, $3,000, give me a whole bunch of blog links that are in your network, because you're getting them. Thousands of other people are getting them, and you're so interlinked in that stuff that, Jesus, I can spot it with a heartbeat. And if I can spot it, so can Google. I really assume they're a lot smarter than me. But I can spot a lot of it. Anyone can call me up. I can put their site in my tool, run it. Within 3 minutes, I can tell where you're buying links from. I don't know if that was one piece of advice or whatever. Be real. Send emails that make sense. Send emails that don't sound spammy. Send emails that sound like you proved you were human and you were really on the website, and that you couldn't have sent that same email to more than one person. And, if you're going to send an email to someone, they don't know who you are, like it better be a really good story. Be real. And it's not something real link building is slow, and it's something that can't be scaled. our company, the past, I don't know, 4 years, we've set a limit on how many links we can build a year. Because it's like, we've had other companies come in and be like, hey, we want to buy you and we want to, send about 10 times the amount of business. And it's like, no, we can't do that. We can't even double what we have. We were kind of booked in January or in February. We were pretty much booked for the year. Corona hit. We lost like 18% of our business. We're about filled up again. So there's a good chance within the next month we'll be booked again. And it's like, and by booked again, it means
That's
like
fantastic, man.
Links that we can get, and we're not going to get more. Like, you can't take real emails and real writing and finding real resources and write to all unique sites and not have databases. And it's not something that you can scale. Real link building is hard. You're sending out a lot of emails and not getting any responses. And but yeah.
You hit on one of my favorite metrics, which is links that actually send traffic. If I'm getting converting traffic from a link, I don't care if it's no followed. I don't care if it's penalized. Like, if it's converting, then Google is secondary. But almost all the cases, if it's converting, it's probably treated pretty well.
Yeah, that was one of my thoughts too. When Google says that no follow is going to be whatever they call it, a suggestion or whatever.
Yeah.
Or to their prerogative if they were going to follow it or not. One of my thoughts was, well, I guess I had a couple thoughts, all right, well, the Wikipedia links are going to count. And then the second one being, links that send traffic might be the other ones that count.
Because they have all the data. It's coming through Android and Chrome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I really want to thank you again for being a platinum sponsor. This has been a really good session.
Jim, thank you so much. We really appreciate it here at the DMO, and really a great presentation.